enjoying life. So, if you will, share a little bit about who you are and what
Well,
you do.
my name is Curtis Artis. I'm from Danville, Virginia. Basically, I've been here my entire life. Um, Currently, I work with at-risk youth and helping them stay on a straight path. Well, not even a straight path, just helping them maneuver through the pitfalls of the world. That's what I do.
Okay.
Um,
Put it.
I I'm a father of two. I have a 34-year-old son, 30-year-old daughter. Me and my wife have been together over 30 years. We grew up together, and right now my whole everything about my life is giving back to the community, helping those who the society considers the have-nots.
Mm.
You know, I get a great pleasure out of assisting individuals that everybody else would throw away.
If you will, share also with us, how long did you actually do?
Well, this last time I was incarcerated for 5 years.
Okay.
Um, I've been in trouble with the law off and on since I was a teenager.
Mm.
Um, Due to my lack of knowledge of self and not having a male role model.
Okay.
Um, I grew up with mainly elderly people and women.
Mm.
So with elderly people, I could game them. I could get over on them. And with women, with not having really no males in my immediate family to watch over me
Mm.
and discipline me when I needed it. I had women who worked all the time. So I always tell people I'm the original latchkey kid.
Mm.
My mother worked from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. the majority of my life. So picture what a 12-year-old can get into if when you come home, there's no one there but you. And it's no one to say, they can say it, but there's no one there to make sure you do your homework. There's no one to make sure you even came straight home from school.
Mm. You
So
can do what you want to do because there's no guidance there. There's
no
nobody
guidance
there.
whatsoever. So I had that total freedom as a young person, and to an extent, it was good, but it was very bad. It was good because it taught me independence.
Yes.
I learned how to cook, clean, whatever it needs to be, and then I learned how to be by myself.
But no
So I
direct.
didn't really need people around me. But then at the same time, when you're younger, you want people around you and your peers. So I was very influenceable
Mm.
because a man, in my opinion, would teach a young man how to stand up for himself and be truly independent and not be a father. Because
Mm.
that would have been my first hero.
Okay.
But my first hero would be young men my age because they were the
Mm-hmm.
closest thing.
Sound like pretty much what the youth is actually going through now,
Oh yes, it's
and
very
and
similar.
in a wide range of parents. This is whether you're in a dual parent household or a single parent household, because both parents working, you still got the kids sitting up there vying for themselves.
Thank you.
Especially back in the day, I think they used to have maybe a grandma used to still would be somewhere in the picture where she could snatch them off the bus or have somebody around. But these days they have nobody that's there, and they doing as you just said, influenceable with the youth that they know, and
Yes,
they get into something because
yes,
hey, they young, they like to just they're curious.
yes. So
So
going through that and growing up with that, um, I became very mischievous. I indulged in marijuana use at a very early age. Um, at a very young age, I started stealing things that I wanted, not what I needed, but what I wanted. Um, Sexual activity early.
mhm.
I did all the things that you would do wrong because I was left to my own devices.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up with a brother. We were total opposites. So his life was, me and him grew up in the same house, and our lives were totally different. He was just a year younger, but if you knew us at that time, you would swore because of our size difference, because my brother had some health issues back then. He looked like I looked like I was a fifth and sixth grade, and he looked like he was a first grade.
Mm-hmm.
So we were never close. So I searched out people outside the house, and then when I searched out people outside the house, you're attracted to negativity.
Mm-hmm.
What people make negativity look good.
Man, what?
So what I thought looked good, I was attracted to it, and I followed that.
You might
So
just
it led to the,
you might have just created the key to fixing our problem. How do you make positivity look attractive?
yes, and
But
that's what we have to practice.
yeah, but go ahead.
Because growing up as a young man, you see, I didn't grow up in a crack era. I was before crack. I was
Mm-hmm.
before the big, and all the drugs were so socially acceptable. So I grew up, they smoked a little grass, as they called it back then. I didn't hear about hard drugs like that. No, I'm from the South, so I heard about bootleg.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that is my grandfather was a bootlegger. So, and my next door neighbor was the biggest bootlegger in my city. So those things look appealing. Being outside the law looked appealing to me because I grew up with a number runner as my mother's best friend, the number one bootlegger across the street from me, and my grandfather is a bootlegger. So I'm looking at their lifestyle, the way people respected them, and how the community made it look good. So I gravitated towards their younger workers. You get to see the big man might be 40, but he got somebody 20 running around here doing this stuff. And I get to see him all the time. And I hear what the girls saying about him. And I see how the other guys scared of him and so-called respect him, and they talking about his money. So that appealed to me. And it led me, and that never left my head. Even though I was not to toot my own horn, I was a phenomenal athlete as a child.
Okay.
Really good in baseball and football. But I didn't never take it seriously because I didn't see that as a way of life. I didn't understand that was really a way of life and to support yourself. I looked at it as a sport. And I never really understood my own capabilities in it until later. So watching these things going on in my neighborhood, I started forming my own mentality of who I wanted to be. So I would leave out the house, I would be a different person. And I gravitated to the streets, but I stayed in the sports because I was good. And I went through sports, and then I had ended up going to Norfolk State University in 1984. And at that time, that was the first time when I went to Norfolk State University, that was the first time I had been away from home for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. It's my first time meeting people from all over the United States and basically all over the world, because Norfolk State had a lot of foreign exchange students. Mm. And when I went to Norfolk State, that was the beginning of of my permanent down. That was the beginning of my downfall.
Expound upon
it. And see what I mean by that? It wasn't because it was Norfolk State. I wasn't used to that level of freedom with that much access to new information. Mm. Okay, and what I mean by new information. So when I enrolled in Norfolk State in 1984, the first young men that I meet, I'm not going to give their names. They know who they are. The first young men that I meet, they're all from Harlem, New York. Mm. And back in those days in the 80s, if you was from New York, that meant something. You know, you was city slick. You was ahead of us country boys. You was New York was that place you wanted to be. So I meet these guys, and they had already at the same. We all 18 years old. They had already knew about real street stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They knew the inner workings of street stuff. They knew young people that was in New York that was doing real street stuff, selling drugs and running numbers. I had never seen that from young people when I was in Danville. So now I'm like, okay, this is a way for me to make money then, because they were showing they showed me what they knew from their city. So being as they used to call me, the country bumpkin that I was enamored, infatuated, and anything else you can think of with the lifestyle that they were showing me. So much so that I went home with them for Thanksgiving my freshman year. And we went to New York for like 12 days. And in those 12 days on the way home, riding the bus, I said, I'm going to be a crack dealer. I'm going to give me a Mercedes Benz, and I'm going to do these things. Because I done seen young boys in New York, which I had never seen. I'm seeing young guys, 17, 18 years old, pull up with Mercedes Benz. And this is 1984, really 84, 85. And then these guys know them from school. And they done known them. They like, oh man, they've been doing this since they was 15. I'm like, they don't do this in Virginia. So when I came back to Danville, Virginia, came back to Norfolk, Virginia from Thanksgiving break, I started selling marijuana on the college campus.
Mm-hmm.
And it was small time. And then one of my friends that I grew up with, he had met another young man who had met a real weed dealer. So now we got real weed. So I started selling marijuana because I was a marijuana user. I was an avid marijuana user. And from there, I was full speed to the penitentiary. Full speed. Just I quit school. I started selling drugs. I started messing up my life. I started getting in trouble. In the course of this, though, I also became addicted to the drugs because a young man introduced me to crack cocaine and marijuana blunts.
Lacing.
And he knew I loved to smoke blunts. And I started smoking woos. We used to call them woos.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went through that phase. And then I was like, nah, this shit ain't good for me, man. Excuse my language. This ain't good for me. I ain't making money. And then I decided to start just trying to make money. And in the course of making money, I caught a federal charge.
If you don't mind me asking, what was the charge?
848 A and B 924C. Intent to distribute narcotics, possession of a firearm, and furtherance of a drug trafficking crime.
Okay, you caught this at the age of
This was in the 2000s because I went through a long run. I went through a good run. I went through a good run.
Yeah, because you went from
I'm not even gonna lie. I went through a run good enough where I wasn't even thinking about quitting. I'm gonna be honest with you. I probably wouldn't have quit if I wouldn't have got caught.
Come on now.
I had produced kids. I had kids. I'm putting my kids through private school. We living like a middle class family off of drug money, so I know I wasn't gonna quit.
Okay,
I'm gonna tell you, 1984 was the change. Like I said, was the change in my life, and I never changed until I came home from prison in 2012.
Okay, so let's stay right in the 2000s. You catch this charge. How long did you do off that charge?
5.5 years.
Okay, so you ended up doing 5.5 years. You locked up, but when you first get locked up, what was the psychological? I like to say psychological damage that was done.
You know
What were you
what?
thinking?
I can't even say I had psychological damage. I'm a realist.
Talk to me.
So I knew what came with the game. I'm
Mm.
gonna be honest with you. The day I got arrested, I was like, the guy said, "You know, I'm facing a minimum of 5 years, man." I said, and it really wouldn't even be that bad if I didn't have this gun. And he looked at me all crazy. My federal officer that arrested me, because I got caught up in the federal task force stuff. He looked at me like, "How do you, man? I've been preparing for this.
Mm.
My family know how to handle this. Um, you're not going to be able to go in my house." I knew they wouldn't be able to go in my house and search. I knew my wife was prepared because I used to talk about this. I talked about selling drugs to my family like it was a job.
Well, you just said, hey, you won't plan on quitting. This was a
It
job.
was a job. So I was prepared for it. And really, I was tired, man. I was doing so much wrong. And I'm not a gangster. I'm not a violent person. I ain't talking about no gangster stuff. I ain't trying to kill nothing. I was just doing so much wrong.
You just trying to make some money.
I'm making money, but I'm also living like everybody else that starts making money. You know, with that, the
Women.
trappings come with it. People do things for you. Girls come. So I'm indulging in all of that. So I'm really disrespecting my family and my family name to the fullest. And I'm getting tired. I'm lying to everybody. I'm lying to my wife about women. I'm lying to my kids about what I do. I'm lying to their teachers about what I do. Because the crazy part, I'm selling drugs and coaching the girls' basketball team. Literally, I'm selling drugs and I'm coaching the girls' basketball team. My daughter's a phenomenal athlete. She's a girls' basketball player. So she was awesome at this sport. So I'm investing in her for her college future.
Mm-hmm.
And they needed a coach. I'm like, I coach. I'm coaching the team. I'm people knew it was so crazy, man, that the guys that the people that I was dealing with the drugs knew, like, yo, between 3 and 5, he with his daughter coaching the girls basketball team. I would get texts and calls and be like, listen, I know you at practice. I'm just saying, as soon as practice is over, come by and swing by. I need this. Come by, and that's how crazy it was. I was out of control. I was out of control.
So you was
So
tired.
I didn't when I went to prison, when I got arrested, I didn't even ask for I could have got a bond. I turned it down. They gave me a bond. And it's rare that you get a bond in a federal case, but
In federal case.
I wasn't the original pick on their radar.
Mm.
So, and then when they looked at me and I had letters coming in from teachers and all types of principals and all type of great people that I was living a double life. So around these people, they didn't see that. I kept my life separate. So I had people writing for me to get a bond and everything. But by the time it happened, I was ready to lay it down, man. I knew I was going to have to lay it down. So I just accepted the fact from the gate. Listen, I got to go lay it down. And I got to change some things up when I come back out.
All right. So you you said you really didn't have too much. I was gonna ask you when you actually got sentenced, what went through your mind? How did you feel?
I felt relieved. It was over. It was
Mm.
over. I had, like I said, once I got arrested, and a lot of people are not willing to admit this, but even though you're making money and it look like your life is in order, your life is in total chaos when you're doing this, because there's other people plotting your life
Oh man,
every day.
wanting to
You got the
rob you.
pickup kids, you got the police, you got the girls that you're cheating on your girl with. You got all these things. You got other hustlers saying you don't deserve what you got. You're trying to hide, and then you're trying to look a certain way for the people that can judge your kids. So you got so much turmoil going on. You got to play 20 different roles in a day.
Hmm.
It was hectic. So when I got arrested and I laid it down, I was ready to lay it. I laid it. I knew it was time. And to be honest with you, I felt like I had this is going to sound crazy, but if you've never been there, you'll never understand it. The things that I had accumulated,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I've accumulated some things that I couldn't have gotten working a job that I needed. So I was like, okay, it was worth it. I got this right here. Like I got a home out of the deal.
Mm.
And I was like, yo, I used to tell people all the time, I hustled for this house. Because I wouldn't have got it no. I used to say I wouldn't have got it no other way when I could have got it another way.
It might have took a little longer.
Yeah, it just might have took a little long, but I could have did it. So I was like kind of satisfied with the way things went down. Of course, the first couple of days, I was like, man, I wish I could be out here. I got arrested on my birthday. And my birthday was on a Friday. And when they arrested me, I had close to $2,000 worth of product on me. I knew I would have sold in the first half of that day. So my stupidity in the way I was thinking, my criminal thought process, the first day, I ain't gonna admit, the first week, the first month, all I was calculating was how much money I'm missing a day. I used to wake up thinking like that, like, man, if I was out there right now, I would have made about this much money. I wasn't thinking like, oh man, this is gonna be terrible, and I'm super duper scared, and you always have that fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
But by this time, man, I had helped take care of so many dudes in prison. When I went to prison, I was helping take care of like 4 guys that was already in federal prison. I'm sending each one of them $100 a month. And I'm listening to their stories. And I had made some visits to Sim, so I was like, I can handle it. I'm not gonna go in there on no superhero type stuff. So I know I ain't gonna, if an altercation come, I believe I can handle myself. But I didn't feel I would be in an altercation. So my fear was the money. The biggest thing about the first year was I always thought about the money. What if? Who got my spot name? You might hear some things from the street about, man, such and such out here rolling now. And you be like, man, that's supposed to be me. So that was my only thing. And I'm just going to keep it real, because a lot of people going to say, man, when I got locked up, I regretted everything. I ain't meet no people like that when I was locked up. Because I'm going to tell you, when I was locked up, I think I was the only person that said they was guilty of what they did. And I admit it. I used to tell people all the time, in my prison, I'd be like, yo, I'm the only motherfucker, I'm the only person in here guilty.
Come on now.
Yeah, because how can you glorify when you out here on these streets and it's going good, and you at the strip club making it rain,
you having a ball,
and you taking care of your family and another family, and you tricking and you buying things and you doing this, and it's all good, and you ain't working, and then how can you sit there and say you got did wrong and you did this when it get caught and you innocent? Man, they ain't catch me with no dope. Man, come on, man. We all know the law. The law is the law. You ain't got to be caught with no dope.
You know what you was doing.
Yeah, you know what you're doing. And so I didn't take it that way. And I'm by far not the hardest person in the world. That ain't me. I'm just saying I'm realistic. I accept responsibility for what I do.
Okay.
So I didn't have, my regrets were more along the line of selfish regrets of like what I'm missing out on. But now I also within the first month knew what I wanted to do with the rest of my life.
Share this, because this is where.
So when I got locked up in federal prison, I was one of the older guys. I wasn't a teenager, so I saw a lot of young guys coming into the system, and man, it amazed me of the lack of intelligence. And I'm not talking common sense, because common sense can only get you so far in this world. You still got to know how to be book smart to make it in this world financially. And I never knew this many kids were dropping out of school before, because I wasn't paying attention to them. I never knew we had so many mental health issues. I never saw so many young people taking medication in my life until I went to prison. If you haven't been to prison, they got a pill call. Pill call gonna be about 2:00 before we have chow at 4:00. And man, they will call pill call, and you see all these guys heading down the compound to go to medical to take this medicine. And I'm like, I'm in here with a group of people with all types of health issues and mental health issues, and I never paid attention because in the African American community, because I can't speak for the European community, but in the African American community, we see mental health issues all the time, and we just, we normalize it. It ain't nothing to have the uncle or the cousin that ain't right living in the back bedroom of grandma's house, and the only thing you know is don't leave the babies around. You don't understand, because we normalize negativity and trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was clueless. But watching these young people come in and talking to them, because other guys wouldn't talk to them, because they're young. Young people they like that rah-rah.
They do a few things.
So they gonna keep it active in there. And they gonna keep it. They gonna keep it going. They gonna keep something going. So a lot of guys wouldn't talk to them. But I used to just talk to them because I'm like, I remember I was you. And talking to the young guys in there, I saw they need, we need more black men to really be black men, because I saw in prison that I wasn't a good black man. I wasn't a good father. I wasn't a good husband. I wasn't a good brother. I wasn't a good son. I wasn't a good human being because I was selfish and I only cared about what benefited me. So I wasn't looking at my world. And I saw in my world that black men were failing black youth, and we were letting them go to the prison at an even faster rate than they said it would be like in the 80s and 90s. So and that made me see that I was going to come home and I was going to work with people who had criminal histories, and I was going to help them get their lives together. Now, this is what I said when I told my wife this probably 6 months after being my initial incarceration. So I hadn't even been sentenced yet.
Okay.
So I'm waiting to be sentenced, but I told her this is what I was going to do. So in the system, I started talking to people more. And I'm the guy in the system that most guys didn't want to be around, because I ain't talking war stories.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how much dope you sold. You ain't got it now. No. I don't want to hear about how much money you got. You ain't got it now. I want to talk about what we really going through. Accepting responsibility for your mistakes. And I used to be talking to guys about that with like I said earlier, I'm the only one guilty. How can you not be guilty? You showing me a car of a Mercedes Benz, you haven't even graduated from high school, and you and your girl had this, and this. How did you get it?
Come on, man.
You guilty. But you playing technicality role. So I was that guy to be like, I don't play the technicality role. So a lot of young people gravitated to me because I'm older, but I'm talking a different talk. I ain't talking gangster and I ain't talking street. I'm just talking about getting home and understanding, you got to be prepared. You got to prepare yourself. This system ain't here for rehabilitation.
It ain't gonna give you nothing.
No, you got to start. I read every day. I read all types of books. I would read biographies. I would read hood, but I would read anything. I'm reading love. I'm just reading to keep my mind going, keep my vocabulary up, to keep myself sharp. Because you sit in prison and you can get caught up into you reliving the first day every day, because you only think that's all you talking about, that street stuff. Mm-hmm. It's 5 years in, you still talking about when you got arrested in 1996 and how it was back then. So I read, and before I went to prison, I was a big reader. I love to read books. So I want to say I read the Reuben Hurricane Carter book when I first heard about it. Probably it was like 99, 98. So I got the book and I read his book. And in his book, two things stood out to me that I said, was very important to me. I read that his co-defendant last name was the same name as mine. And I knew I had family in New Jersey, so I was like, I wonder, is that one of my family members involved? And then the second thing, he said he made his day the total opposite of everybody else's in the institution. So he stayed up all night and read and worked on himself, and he
Mm-hmm.
slept during the day. Well, being a drug dealer, you lazy as crap anyway. I mean, you running, but you'll go through that phase where you getting up when you want to get up, you moving when you want to move. So I just said, okay, this fall right in line with me. This will be better for me to keep me out of trouble, keep me away from people, keep me focused. So while I was in federal holding, waiting to go to sentencing, I slept all day. I would only eat one meal a day. That'd be done. I would sell the rest of my meals, trade the rest of my meals off for commissary stuff, and I would sleep all day. Get up about 3:30, eat dinner, let them lock us back down. I go back to reading my book. I would read the Bible, and I would read a book, and I would do that all day and all night. And I would read till I would stay up from 3:30 till 5:30 in the morning. 3:30 in the evening to 5:30 in the morning was my working hours. And I would sleep the whole time everybody else was up. I didn't even want my cell pop. I'm good. I ain't coming out. I ain't got to come off from that. If I need to use the bathroom, I hit the button. But I made my day opposite of everybody else's because I intentionally did that because Reuben Hurricane Carter said he wanted to stay away from all the BS that was in the prison system and not get caught up into that world because you can. And you won't grow mentally and you'll be stuck. So I did that for the first year while I was in federal holding to go to prison. And then when I went to prison, I joined the book club.
Okay.
My wife started sitting, she signed up on them book clubs where you get the books sent in. And my wife and my brother, they were sending me so many books that I'm reading books. And now I'm in prison and guys they want to read the book. But the whole thing is, I got to mess with you to read my book. And the only way I'm going to mess with you if you ain't on no BS.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped me eliminate the problem. So I started associating with certain guys that was on the same mental path as I was. They had the same mindset. They're going to come home. They're going to change their lives. They was already preparing themselves in prison to come home. Because you got to prepare yourself. If you don't, it ain't going to work. You got to stay in there. I tell anybody now, you're not going to stop doing what you do that's wrong until you're tired of it. You're going to have to get tired of it, and you're going to have to say, I'm done.
Oh, I like to tell people this. The work starts in there. It don't start out here.
Yeah.
You can wait till you get out here and say, I'm going to do good when I get out here. You still got bad habits
Yes.
to you. So unless you mess around and start doing the inner work where you're at, don't look for it to blossom out here.
No, it's not.
So you read Reuben Carter's book.
Yeah, I read his book and I took the game plan out of his book on how I was going to maneuver my time through prison so I can stay out of drama and I can focus on what I'm trying to do. So then to help me, because I knew I wanted to work with people with criminal, I started talking to people about what they were going to do when they go home, how they going to do it. Have you started checking into this? Blah blah blah. I stayed away from all the BS. I didn't play no games in prison. What I mean by game, I didn't do cards.
No tabletops.
I didn't do none of that stuff because I saw I didn't mess around with the TV. I wasn't gambling.
These are the things that get you caught up into the same old lifestyle.
I'm just a dude walking around. Everybody know he gonna walk the track every day by himself. I'm gonna read my books, and I'm gonna be in my cell. If you want to come back there and talk to me about getting a book or talk to me about something else that's positive, you can. I didn't buy into none of that, and that's how I started preparing myself for being out here by getting discipline in there. I got discipline in there, and I made sure I communicated with young people because I saw young people were really is the future. Before you just saying that stuff, at some point in time, if it really clicked, then you start investing. And I
And you,
started paying attention to young people, and I started talking to them about where did they see themselves when they go home. Talking to them about getting away from some of the people they involved with in there. Because they ain't
you
also
started.
do, changing up some things with them. I started mentoring people without calling them mentoring.
That's what
And
I'm about to say. The work that you do now is mirrored from the work that you did in the
yes,
inside.
it's the exact same thing. I'm doing I came home, and this is the crazy part. So, I told you have a case manager and a counselor in there in your unit. So we used to have a drug rehab class called RDAP. And that's the reason why I was in that unit. But I knew I wasn't going to take that class because I wasn't getting any time off on it. I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't getting no time off for it because I had a gun charge. So I said, I'm not going to take this class. I know what my vice is marijuana. I'm not going to use in here and I'm not going to use out there. That's bottom line. So when I started thinking like that and focusing on and intentionally trying to make myself better, the people that came around me changed in there. And it made me see who was around me and why they was around me. And then it opened my eyes up to, you really can do this in here. You can help young people in here by being honest and truthful and not going around lying to them and feeding them these war stories. And then I realized I'm mentoring. But I never said. I used to be in there with 2 or 3 guys. And basically, I'm doing a survey without them realizing I'm doing a survey.
So
asking them all the same questions right there at the same time.
to move it forward just a little bit, the day that you came home, what did it feel like psychologically? What was your mind at? Because
Man, I always knew what I was gonna do.
I'm hearing
Man,
that everything that you had already worked on, you were already a mentor. You was already working on you, the self-development part. And here you are now, about to come home. How did you feel? Were you
man, I
nervous? Was
felt
your
great because
emotions raging?
my only worry when I was coming home was girls.
Mm.
The girls always didn't like me. That's always been a weakness. So that was my only worry. Everything else, I knew what I wanted to do. Even though I had people telling me in there, you will never be able to work with people with a criminal history because you have a criminal history. And I'm telling them, I'm going to go back to college and get my degree, and that's what I'm going to do. And it wasn't the job I have right now and what I'm doing basically considered peer recovery. It wasn't even created back then. But I knew I was going to be able to do it. Man, I came home from prison and I started buying clothes for a job that I didn't even know I could get yet.
Come on now.
It was crazy. Me and my wife used to go to the outlets here in Virginia and North Carolina. I'm buying shirts and ties and slacks and khakis and dress shoes. Now granted, I'm working at Target part-time.
No, but you got a vision.
But I see that this is what I'm going to do. Everybody that would ask me, what did I want to do? I used to tell them, I work here, but my real passion is working with people with criminal history, helping them get their lives together. Show y'all God work. I'm working I get a job. The first job I got working more than 20 hours a week was at a place called God's Storehouse here in Danville, Virginia. They gave me my first chance. Lady named Karen Harris. I owe her to this day.
Come on now.
She gave me my first chance. And I get this job, and I'm just a warehouse manager because that's the closest thing I'd ever done to work before was warehouse. So I get this job as a warehouse manager. And one day she came up to me and she said, do you want to go to the Duke nonprofit management course? I didn't even know what that was. And so she started explaining it to me and said, teaches you how to run a nonprofit. I ain't thought about running a nonprofit. But you know what? They gonna pay for me to go. I'm gonna get a certification from Duke University. All I'm thinking is I'm gonna have a certification from Duke University. Everybody be able to tell me that. I signed up for the class, and the class go for 6 months.
Mm.
I'm in the class one day. Two men started talking to me. Mr. Kenny Lewis and Mr. Chad Martin. I knew who both of them was, but they didn't know who I was. Kenny was one of the greatest football players to ever come out of my tank. So I looked up to him. Chad Martin was the youngest black vice mayor of a town called Martinsville, Virginia, which is about 25 miles from Danville. So I'm really impressed with them, but they don't know.
Yeah.
We talking, we in a group, we talking, and they asked me, so man, what you in here doing this for? Because they just know I'm the warehouse manager, God's Storehouse, which is a nonprofit. They thinking I'm gonna get into nonprofit stuff with food. I tell them, I said, man, I'm doing this for my job, and I think it's gonna help me in the long run with my life. But my real passion is working with people with criminal histories. Kenny Lewis looked at me and say, yo, for real? I said, yeah. He said, take down this number and call this man. Chad Martin looked at me and said, you see that lady right there? I'm going to introduce you to her because she run a reentry program here in Danville. You need to know her. Now, these men, they don't know me. They just met me the day before.
Things working out on your behalf. God worked that way.
Believing in it. God is real. They both did what they said they was going to do. Kenny Lewis gave me a number, told me to call the man. He was going to call the man before I called him and let him know that he sent me to him. Chad Martin stood up, walked over to the lady that was running a reentry program, brought her back to me, said, you need to know this man. He'll be a good person to have on your team. Long story short, Kenny Lewis's friend helped me get my peer recovery specialist certification.
Okay.
Chad Martin introducing me to that lady led me to working as an employment specialist in reentry. Two black men that didn't know me from nobody.
Come on now.
Boom. They hooked me up. After that, my foot in the door. This was in 2018. I ain't looked back since.
So share a little bit about the rest of the work that you do now. I know
so
you.
Now, okay, so I do
because there's a lot you do.
I do the reentry. Well, I'm gonna show you how I got there. So I get the job at for doing the employment for the reentry program. And in the course of doing the employment for the reentry program, I'm new to working. I'm really new to working. So, I'm like a kid when it came out. When you first get that job you want, you excited. So when I first get the job with the reentry program, I said, well, what would I need to do? And who do I need to talk to if this was for me? So I went to the chief of police here in Danville, Virginia, and I introduced myself. I went there without an appointment or nothing. Asked the secretary if he was in. She said, yes, can I speak to him? She went there, told me to come back. I went there, I introduced myself, told him my history, told him what I was doing now. He said, I'm gonna have a young man working with me named Robert David. He's gonna be in charge of our gang intervention and prevention program. You might want to meet him because y'all gonna be in the same circles. So I'm like, cool, that'd be good. He gives Robert my number. When Robert gets everything in order, he calls me one day, invites me out for lunch. We go meet. I go meet him at his office. We talking. I'm telling Robert about the city because Robert's not from Danville. So I'm telling him about the city that I live in and what's going on and this and that. He was like, man, I like the way you moving. I like what I hear from you. I'm gonna get a staff sooner or later. You'll be good to work on my staff. I'm like, cool. No, that sounds good, but I'm really doing what I want to do. Working with, he said, you can still be working with people like that anyway. This is 2019, 2020. Robert hits me up. Yo, they just okayed me for a staff. If you still thinking about that, go ahead and apply. I asked him what the job made. It made $6,000. It paid $6,000 a year less than what I had. But it was closer to. Now I loved working reentry and helping adults get jobs, but I was like, I always said I wanted to work with youth because when I went to Norfolk State in 1984, my major was criminal justice, and I wanted to be a youth probation officer.
Okay.
This how things work in the circle. Everything work in the circle. 1984, I wanted to work with you. 2020, Robert tells me about the job, but it pays $6,000 less. I go to my wife, I tell her what's going on. I said, but I want this job. I really want to do this job because it's helping with the future. It's going to have a longer impact because I'm going to be able to meet kids and impact their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, if this is what you want to do, I'm behind you 100%. Because my wife is my biggest cheerleader, always been my biggest cheerleader since the day I met her. I ain't gonna front. And I took that woman through hell. And she always been my biggest cheerleader. So she was like, we gonna make it. We made it before when you first came home. She was just happy. I won't say I'm ready to quit and go back to the dope game. So she said, go ahead and do it. And so I jumped out there on faith again. And Robert told me, he said, man, stick with it. Because there's going to be room to grow here.
Mm.
Now, I took that job and I made $6,000 less for the first year. For the first 2 years. In 2022, Robert said, man, listen, I get some more staff and I need somebody to be the assistant director of this program. And I want you to be it. But you got to do an interview and you got to impress the people against other people. You got to win it. I want you to win it, but you got to win it on your own. And I'm like, ain't nobody gonna beat me. This I ain't even working. This my life, dude. I'm gonna win. I went in there and I impressed him and I got the job. So I went from making $6,000 less to making $15,000 more.
Yeah. Because you
That's
stuck in
God.
there. That's God. And you stuck in there. That's God.
I'm believing. Now, for the people who gonna see this, I am by far not a religious person. I believe in God. So people will see this and say, he lying because he don't even believe in religion like that. I believe in a higher power. I believe in God. Yeah. I ain't got to follow one religion. I believe in God. And I felt God was pushing me the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So I get this job. Now I'm working with the youth. I get to really shape the youth. You know, I get to go in the school system and see how they're doing with their education. We get to help them with extracurricular activities. We get to be the aunt and uncle, because that's the Robert came up with this phrase. We're the new aunts and uncles, because you have so many single parent homes, so many broken homes in our community. He's like, we're gonna be the aunt and uncle that the kids can depend on. So that's what we really do. It's no limit to what we try to do for these young people, from helping them get into college, from taking them to job interviews, to help them get their first job, to prepare them, teaching them how to get a job,
showing them a whole different route, being the men that they need to see,
opening their world up.
Exposure. You're giving them exposure.
That's what it is, because you know, when you come from these poverty-stricken communities, your world is just your block.
That's
your
all.
Neighborhood, the people, the 5 houses you go to every day. That's your world. So here, we do college trips. We teach them about jobs that they didn't know existed to them.
And now they know, so they can reach out for these jobs. They can put their penetration towards something greater than what they know.
Yeah, and see, I don't know about other communities, but my community, we're a city, but we're rural.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these kids, their parents work so hard just to put food on the table that they don't have. Their mothers work so hard just to put food on the table
that they don't have
the time to point out everything. to show them everything. To show them, listen, man, right down the road, 40 minutes away, Jesse Jackson went to college here. These civil rights movements stopped here. Most of these young people don't know Danville, Virginia was on the forefront of the civil rights movement with Dr. Martin Luther King. He spoke about Danville, Virginia in his I Have a Dream speech in Washington, D.C.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. The young people that led him on the stage at that speech on the March on Washington was teenagers from Danville, Virginia.
I didn't know that.
When you go back and look at the I Have a Dream speech, him and Mr. Lewis both speak on the Danville Police Department and how they had never seen anything like that. And that was knowledge that wasn't being passed on because the breakdown of the Black family had these women working so much they couldn't pass on what they would have passed on if they would have had the time to be the mother and parents.
The nurturers that they're supposed to, yep.
Yeah, they didn't have the time because it was a breakdown of the Black family. So you didn't have a man in the house. So now I got to work hard to provide for these kids. So I'm tired. I'm doing everything in the house for these kids. So I ain't got time to have them good old conversations you would have with your grandmama. Or if your mama wasn't working there all the time, that you can have, she could tell you about her childhood. I myself didn't know my mother had been arrested in the uprisings here in Danville, Virginia. That was the forefront of Martin Luther King's mission. When he left Selma, Alabama, he came to Danville, Virginia, trying to fix things here. People don't know this, because they overlook it. But it's a documentary out on it now called The Movement.
Okay,
and it talks about Danville, Virginia, and the importance of Danville, Virginia. But see, those are things I didn't know, so I couldn't teach my kids. So many kids didn't know. And you know how much pride I had in when I found out my mama was out there on the forefront as a teenager in high school. I'm like, I'm somebody.
You somebody.
But my mama never told me this. Because she didn't have the time to tell me this, and then she didn't want the embarrassment of saying I had been arrested.
And it won't no embarrassment. She did something for the folks.
But you'll be surprised how many Black people thought that way back then.
No, I understand, but
so
you don't realize she was a hero.
So I got the chance to teach people to show these kids stuff like that. Show these kids that we're 2 hours from a major city, the banking capital of the Eastern Coast, probably of the United States, Charlotte, North Carolina. I got to tell them about stories of growing up with my teacher.
I just had to know.
So when by me getting to know more about who I was, who my family was, gave me a bigger sense of pride, and I got to pass on this knowledge to other kids. So they understand what they're coming from. If you know what your foundation is like, you go hard. You go hard
10 times. So before we go, I do want you to do me a favor. Drop a word of wisdom for whoever may see this, because I feel like words of wisdom are important.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, my words of wisdom is it's gonna go to the adults, because these kids don't know what they don't know. We got to be better. We got to be better. We got to stop judging these kids like they created the stuff that they're going through. These kids didn't create this world. They ain't created none of this stuff that's going on. They just following the path. And if we as adults don't start treating these young people as human beings instead of this as property, because that's how we treat them, as property. We got to treat them as human beings. We got to value their opinion. And when their opinion is out of balance or out of whack, correct them in the right manner. We got to do better. Adults got to do better, because these kids learn from your actions and not your words. That's my thing. Don't talk the talk, walk the walk. Do better. So that would be my thing, because I'm tired of hearing do as I say and not as I do. That ain't
Do as
never
I
worked.
do. Do as I do.
Do as I do. So if you want a kid to do better, you do better.
Good God. Look, I'm gonna leave it right there. I want to thank you for joining me. I want
Thank
to
you
thank
for having
you
me.
for your time because it's an honor to be in your presence, especially knowing that the work that you're doing, but also being a native of Halifax County, which is right around from Danville. This actually means more than you know to me personally. Plus, we just got to meet each other yesterday, and even though we
I
had
enjoy
talked
it.
before, so I appreciate you. And I'll make sure I send this to you, but. Thank you, and what we'll be doing, we'll be working, man. My name is
Okay.
Carlos Walker. This is Mr. Curtis A. Art. Is it Artis?
Artiste the third.
Artis the third, and this is Forward Progress. Thank you for the work that you do, sir.
Man, thank you for having me, man. Keep doing what you're doing.